Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fable Joey, and today I am here to review the Strokes' sixth studio album, The New Abnormal. This comes in at about 9 songs and 45 minutes long. It was produced by Rick Rubin, and as Strokes fans know, it has been a 7-year wait for this record, and I can happily say now that the wait is over. It was so worth it. And that is a pretty big statement because, yeah, we were waiting for 7 years. And before we really get started and I get to talk about why I love this album and why I think it's great, I wanted to say that these Strokes are actually my favorite band of all time. Not only did I grow up with them, but I love pretty much their whole discography. In fact, I think that Angles and Come Down Machine are actually really underrated records from them, and I really do enjoy them quite a bit. And on top of that, Room on Fire is quite possibly my favorite album of all time. So yeah, I love the Strokes. I did grow up with them. I listened to their music with my older brothers all the time, and then I kind of found my own love for them still when I was really young, and I've loved them forever. So to hear new music from the Strokes is incredible. There was a time when I thought that I wouldn't be getting any new music from the Strokes, and that was really hard. But now that there is new stuff, it's just great. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say that even though I've always been a really big Strokes fan, I have never really loved the online Strokes representation. And I'm not talking about like fan bases on Reddit and other things, but I've never really liked the big music organizations whenever they talk about the Strokes, strictly because the Strokes only really get praise for their first record, Is This It?, which I think is a phenomenal record, but I think to compare every single record to Is This It is a little unfair because of when it came out, it was so big and it was so great for all these bands and it inspired a ton of bands, but I really don't like the mentality that the Strokes have never progressed or have never made a good record after Is This It, so I never really loved the online presence of the Strokes, at least in a music reviewing context. But since I am here and I am a massive Strokes fan, I thought I would give this review of the new record just from a Strokes fan. And in fact, I didn't really write a script for this video. I just want to do it straight from the heart because I love this record. So just so you know, if you were coming here to have me compare this record to Is This It, that's not going to happen at all. I want to review it on its own. So let's get started. Like I said before, The New Abnormal is 9 songs long, and Rick Rubin produced this thing so perfectly. I think that he is a phenomenal choice for a band coming back after such a long time. He produces this record with so much flair and so much style, I honestly don't know if anyone could have done it better. He knocked it out of the park, and I think that the best thing that he did on this record was have everything sound so clean. When have we ever been able to understand on the first listen everything that Julian's saying? If you're like me and you've been listening to Julian for years, you can probably pick up on more than just a normal listener, but the vocals and the lyrics on this thing are so clear that we can actually hear Julian, and I think that's incredible because it's been a long time since we've been able to do that. But since this record is only 9 songs, I kind of wanted to go through every single song because it is a pretty short record. I mean, the runtime is 45 minutes, but I can talk about every song, and I love pretty much every song. So let's get into the first one with The Adults Are Talking. And I think that this is a perfect opener. Honestly, I don't really have any problems with this track. In fact, I've probably listened to it the most since the record has come out. This song is phenomenal, and my favorite thing about it is the instant connection between our two guitarists, Nick Valenci and Albert Hammond Jr. It is instant. The second you hear their guitar lines over each other, you're like, oh, we're back. This is the Strokes. We're here. And it's incredible how everyone comes together in this track. I also love Julian's laid-back approach to the vocals on The Adults Are Talking. I think it is a great decision to kind of have his vocals a little bit quieter, and the way that they kind of sound right next to your ears when you listen to the track is just phenomenal. I love The Adults Are Talking. Everything about this song. I love how there's different sections of it. You know, there's like a couple times where they'll play the chorus and then it breaks down with guitar solos. I love the instrumentation in this track and the production as well, where the guitars almost have this effect that they're almost underwater, is kind of what it sounds like. It's really laid back compared to if you've heard the live version, but I actually love this. And in the track's final moments, everyone comes together and everyone is playing with just everything. I gotta give it to the band for coming back to this record with devotion and just really being there for it. And The Adults Are Talking is the perfect way to show this. The drums are fantastic, guitars are back, the bass lines are smooth, Julian's vocals are out of this world, the falsetto on the back half of the track, it's amazing. The Adults Are Talking, I could not be more happy with an opener, and it might be my favorite opener from a Strokes record. I'm not really sure because I still need to let it sit for a bit, but The Adults Are Talking is phenomenal. And The Adults Are Talking segments perfectly into Selfless, which is yet again another track that is kind of laid back, but almost a little bit more than The Adults Are Talking. Anyways, this song is beautiful. I cannot believe how pretty this song sounds. There are some incredible synths circling the background of this track. I think in a couple sections they are looped, but really this track belongs to Julian's vocal performance. In fact, I think that the lyrics on this track are some of the best on the whole entire record. Definitely some of the most thought-provoking, and it's really just this melancholy vibe that I always think the Strokes have been able to pull off very well, executed perfectly on Selfless. I think that Selfless is a gorgeous track. The guitar harmonies are great. The vocal melodies and Julian's falsetto, once again, is fantastic. I also love the drums in this track. I mean, they're set back a little bit as well as the bass line, but they're pretty fantastic, and overall, Selfless is just beautiful. It's a beautiful ballad, and I love it. And unlike Selfless, Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus, our next track on the new Abnormal, comes in at track 3. This song is so punchy, and I love it. I honestly was so excited. I heard this, and these synths come in, and they just like break down the walls. They are so loud and in your face, and that's kind of what I love about this track. It kind of brings back the grunge elements of some of the, you know, more garage rock-esque moments on their first couple records, and I love that. But I think that this song kind of shows that the new Abnormal stands on its own more than other Strokes records, because there's never a dull moment in this track. There is always something going on that is interesting, and the drums gotta be my favorite part. I think Fabrizio is killing it throughout this whole record, but the drums on Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus are just so great. They accompany everything so well. I just kind of love that this song is in your face, and I love that vocal hook about, you know, you want new friends, but they don't want you. There's something about it that's so great, and just the chorus is fantastic. Everything on Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus is great, and that leads us to our next single, which Brooklyn to Bridge was one of the 3 singles, and now we have Bad Decisions. Now, Bad Decisions, I love. This track took a while to really, really make me appreciate it. In fact, the first couple times I really liked it. I love Julian's falsetto towards the back end of the track. I think it is fantastic. It's so fun. It's so 80s, and I really just love this track from the start, but it took a while for me to really realize the prize of this track, and that is what I think the lyrics are. Some people have guessed that the part in the lyrics where it talks about the gun and the glove are references to the Strokes' first 2 records, with the gun being a reference to the Room on Fire cover, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that I ever really thought about that, but there is a gun on this, and I think that the glove is on the Is This It original album cover, but the fact that there is a comparison there, I think that a lot of people think that this Strokes track it's wearing this disguise with these super 80s guitars and this Is This It kind of sounding, you know, theme overall to the track, but I think deeper down, it's trying to say that maybe the Strokes don't like making those songs anymore, or they don't want everything to just be Is This It. I've seen a lot of people online in the comment section talking about that, and while I had never really thought about it until I saw those, I think that's a really cool direction if that's what they were choosing to go for. Anyways, Bad Decisions is just fun. It's really just fun, and it's a track that I think is pretty great right in the middle of this record along with the next track. I think that it's pretty good, and it is probably going to be a grower for most of you if you don't like it already. And that brings us to what I think is not only the most ambitious song on this record, but quite possibly one of the most ambitious Strokes songs in general, and that is Eternal Summer. Eternal Summer is insane. There's so much going on in this track. These Strokes kind of bring it with this psychedelic fusion of rock and pop. Julian's insanely high falsetto on this track is something that we pretty much never hear from him, and I think he rocks it. There is a lot happening on this track, like I said. They are bouncing between these kind of pop melodies where it is very summer-esque, and I kind of love that about the track, but then it catches you off guard and puts you in this grunge heavy where Julian's kind of he's like growling and he's singing. It's just incredible. It's kind of jarring your first time through. You're like, what just happened? And it switches back through that, but I love this element of the track. It's switching back from this rock pop with these gentle guitars, breezy guitars, and into this heavier section where Julian's singing about the 11th dimension or the 11th hour, and just I love it. I think it's crazy, and the back end of this track is quite interesting. In fact, I don't know what it is, but there's something about the end of this that not only sounds like they're kind of underwater and it's being like echoed around, but the thing that I love about this track the most is that back half, and honestly, it kind of sounds like a Michael Jackson vocal melody to me, and Julian's falsetto is really high. I just kind of made that comparison in my head. I don't think anyone else has made it, but I thought I'd bring it up. Eternal Summer is great. It's definitely the song that has grown on me the most on this record, and I love it now. I think the guitars are great. They're super breezy. They're super fun. I really just like this track, and I do think it is extremely ambitious for what it's going for. It's also the longest Strokes track yet, so that is pretty interesting to take into account. And if this wasn't enough with it kind of turning up the heat with this song, which I love, we then move into At the Door. And At the Door is the first single that came out from this album cycle, and I love this song. It is quite possibly the most lyrically interesting track on the whole record, and all throughout the New Abnormal there are moments of incredible lyric, and I love the lyrics all over this record. But At the Door has some of the most interesting lyrics, and I love how melancholy this track is. I love how bare the instrumental is. I love the super faint guitars on the chorus, and just how empty the synths are. It's really just it's a testament to what the Strokes can do with that synth laid back material, and this track owes its greatness to Julian. Julian's vocal performance on this song blew me away my first time hearing it, and it still does today. In fact, this track most reminds me of a song off Angles called Call Me Back, which is a track that I love, and I think that's one of the only other tracks in my mind that goes to this very bare instrumental and Julian blowing it out of the water with this vocal performance. At the Door is incredible. If you want a song that is hollow with not a lot of instrumentation but a gorgeous vocal performance from Julian, At the Door is the way to go. This track is phenomenal. I love it. It was such a great single. But now we get to talk about the last three songs on the record. And if the New Abnormal wasn't already incredible, these last three tracks are going to go down as some of my favorite Strokes songs ever. And we start that with Why Are Sundays So Depressing. Why Are Sundays So Depressing definitely has my favorite use of synths on this whole record. These echoey patterned synths on the chorus with Julian's echoed voice is incredible. In fact, this might be my favorite chorus on the record. I love Why Are Sundays So Depressing. And it's just very interesting that the lyrical themes in this track are so strong and are so good, because I think at a first glance you could kind of see the lyrics as weird, maybe they don't make a lot of sense. You dive a little bit deeper, and I think this is one of the most lyrically deep tracks on the record, but the instrumental is just my favorite part. These synths, they're so weird, and I love it. The sound, I heard it for the first time and I was just like, yep, I'm in. And I feel like a lot of people won't be hearing Why Are Sundays So Depressing for the first time. They'll be like, what is this synth effect? But I love it. I think it's kind of crazy. It's super weird. Kind of fits with the album cover's name, The New Abnormal. I love Why Are Sundays So Depressing. It is fantastic. I love what they chose to do with Julian's vocals. It is just all in all a great track. But these last two songs on this record take it in a direction that I didn't really see coming, and I probably should have. These tracks are so melancholy and really just, they have such a different tone to them than most Strokes songs have. And quite possibly my favorite kind of Strokes mood is the moodier songs, the darker tracks, and that starts with Not the Same Anymore. Not the Same Anymore on this record is honestly one of my favorite vocal performances from Julian ever. On the back half of this track, He has never synced up with the guitars this well, in my opinion. He is so perfect, and I think that they placed his voice in the mix really great on this song because there's these soaring guitar lines and the drums are going crazy, the bass is going crazy, everything, but you can still hear Julian. And I love the lyrical theme of this track, Not the Same Anymore. And I love its last haunting line, which is great. And Julian talking about how he was too late and he couldn't change. There's so much to break down on this track. I absolutely love it. Not the Same Anymore is easily one of my favorite Strokes tracks on this album and could end up being one of my favorite Strokes songs ever. I love Not the Same Anymore to death. I think it is phenomenal. And I also love the outro on this track. Not just because it leads so well into the last song on the record, which we'll get to in a second, but I think that the choice to kind of strip back the instrumental and make everything a little more bare and just kind of keep going with that guitar line is great. I think it lets you sit with the track for a moment, and it lets you prepare yourself for one of my favorite album closers that I have ever heard, and probably my favorite Strokes album ender. Holy smokes! Ode to the Mets is fantastic. Everything about this record, I feel like, in a sense, is leading to this song because I feel like Ode to the Mets takes hints from every song in the past on this record. And I love that. But Ode to the Mets, my favorite part about it has to be the instrumental, obviously, and Julian's vocal performance and the lyrics. But my favorite thing is that everyone kind of takes turns coming into this song. You start with the kind of warbled synth at the beginning that is kind of an odd effect, but then the guitar line comes in and you're like, whoa. And then the second guitar line comes in, and then the bass starts to come in, and Julian's vocals, and Julian with the most, just the best line ever, drums please fab, which I love, that was in the mix. They all just come together on this track and they kind of take turns coming in for this instrumental finish that is just insane. It's just on another level than what you get from a normal Strokes song, with everyone coming in at different times and then they all come together in some of the best ways that I have ever seen the Strokes do on a track. Like I said with The Adults Are Talking, the best part about that track is the progression from the beginning to the end, with the kind of barren, empty start with this incredible finish, and Ode to the Mets just perfects this style of Strokes music and this long track format that they're going for. I love the vocals on this track. I think they are out of this world. Julian, time and time again on this record, just knocks it out of the park vocally, and he does that again on Ode to the Mets. It is insane how great this song is. In fact, I'd say the last half of this track is like some of my favorite Strokes moments in any Strokes song ever. I love Ode to the Mets. Once again, I think it is a phenomenal closer for this record, and I think it's the closer that this record deserves, with so much instrumental experimentation and really just a kind of back to basics but bring in new stuff format for the Strokes, because there is a lot of old Strokes sounding stuff on this record and tracks that could possibly fit on other Strokes records, but at the end of the day, The New Abnormal stands on its own as a phenomenal record. And Ode to the Mets, once again, is one of my favorite album closers that I've honestly ever heard. I love that song. So guys, The New Abnormal took 7 years to get here. And I can honestly say that every time I listen to this song, I really just have a massive smile on my face because the Strokes are back. I would not have cared if they came back and made a bad record. I still would have been excited, but thank goodness they delivered, and they delivered incredibly, because The New Abnormal is a phenomenal record. I am so happy to have the Strokes back, and I hope you guys are too. So for my final thoughts and grade, my favorite tracks on this record have to go to The Adults Are Talking, Ode to the Mets, Not the Same Anymore. Those are my top three. I honestly could just sit here and name every track from the record. I also love Why Are Sundays So Depressing. So those four are probably my very favorites, but yeah, I could have put any track there. At the end of the day, guys, I love this record. I'm happy to see them back. I'm happy to hear that the Strokes sound like they're having fun again on a record, which we didn't necessarily get on their last two efforts, even though I do love those albums. So guys, I'm going to give The New Abnormal an A. I could easily see this over time becoming an A+, and possibly even sitting up with Room on Fire for one of my favorite albums of all time. And if you disagree with that, that's perfectly fine. This is my opinion, and keep in mind that Strokes are my favorite band, so I am very biased. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't checked out The New Abnormal yet, please give it a listen, and I really hope that you enjoy it. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you next time.